welcome to the next module where we're going to talk about branding, okay? And in this first lesson, I want to recap some ideas and just start off with your idea of whatever it is your business is going to be about, okay? Because at this point, you really need to start deciding what it is you're going to be selling, all right? We already talked about all the different areas that you need to think about. And like I said before, I can't give you the answer. I can give you what I feel like are my best suggestions for getting started if you're brand new, but ultimately that's something that you need to decide based on your strengths and where you're at and what your goals are and what you want to accomplish and how much capital you have and what you're interested in, right? And what makes sense to you and the things that we talked about and looked at before. But I can narrow it down for you, all right? So at this point, you're going to be deciding from one of these, really, right? You're either going to be drop shipping other people's products, you're going to be doing print-on-demand items, or some combination of both. You're going to be private labeling an existing product idea or selling your own products that you might already have that are already in existence from your own brand or your own store or something that you are creating, whether it's a digital product or a physical product or whatever that might be. So one thing that I will say and suggest is that in the beginning, you should definitely choose something low risk so you can afford to fail. And that note is for newbies, okay? Again, I'm not talking to people who are like experienced with businesses here, but if you're brand new and you haven't done this before and you don't have a lot of experience and you're gonna fail, okay? You're gonna mess up. You're going to have to figure things out. And so it's advantageous to you to choose something that's low risk like drop shipping or print on demand. And basically, when it comes to those options, there's a few different ways you can combine them, right? There's the idea of a hybrid store, which we talked about, which is combining drop shipping and POD. So you could do a drop ship store that also sells print-on-demand items. It's like a secondary thing, or it could be a print-on-demand store that also has drop ship items, right? Like they can work together. We looked at some examples of that. You could do one or the other. Like there's no saying that you have to combine them and do the hybrid idea. But remember, I like the hybrid idea because it's flexible. It gives you room to work around both things. It allows you to build a brand, but still have the ability to maneuver within whatever you want to do. The other option that you could do, which I did talk about briefly before, is a single product store. Okay, and this isn't typically something that I've done, but I am working with some people that are doing this right now. And it's really simple, right? The only thing about a single product store is that you've got to be good at your product research. Right, you've got to be able to really narrow in on something that has, is going to have a big market and a lot of appeal and is can be consistent, right? So the example we looked at before, a few lessons back, I forget where it was, but it was a company called Snooze. And basically they sold one product. It was a wireless Bluetooth speaker that was for helping people sleep, right? It played like white music or ambient music for people to help people sleep at night, okay? And that's a single product store. And there's multiple examples of that out there. It can be really, the advantage to that is that if you do pick something good, it's such a singular focus, right? So you're not worried about testing multiple products. You're not worried about moving all around the map, but you have just that one thing that you're selling and building a brand around. So that's a really good idea, but it can be a little tougher in my opinion if you don't have like a proven process to go through and actually identify what that single winning product is going to be. That's why I like the hybrid model for new people to get started and have the flexibility in the room to test different things, but still being able to build something that's like a nice brand for themselves. Now, when we're actually getting into talking about brainstorming ideas, all right, I think there's really two ways that you can go about starting to think of what you want to sell. Again, this is mostly recap because we talked about market research and niche research already, but as we're moving into the branding phase, I just want to go through this again. You can look at what the market wants, or you can look at what you're interested in. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's just that you need to remember if you're talking about what you're interested in already, you need to validate that is actual market demand as well. Okay, it needs to be something that has enough demand that you can build a business out of it. All right. That's why I prefer what the market wants, because that way you know you're finding things that are trending or ideas that have a lot of demand already. But it's not to say that you can't choose something you're passionate about, right? You might be passionate about volleyball, and obviously there's a market for that, okay? So it would just become a matter of, all right, I'm interested in volleyball. Now let's start narrowing this down into how I want to sell things and what am I going to sell and what kind of brand am I going to build. A few key points to remember when you're thinking about good ideas, okay? And not all of these, right? Like you don't have to fit all of these for any single idea, but these are just some general points of things that I've learned along the way that can help you identify if it's a good idea. All right, number one, something that answers a question. And by question, I mean like, a question could be like something, say, how can I take my phone underwater? Right? Like before there were things that were like waterproof cases and waterproof phones or whatever, which we have now. But before that was a question, right? People had smartphones. They did water activities. How can I take my phone into the water? Okay. So that's a kind of question, right? Or a problem. A question is often very similar to a problem. Like in that situation, people have phones and they want to be able to go out in the water without damaging them. How can you protect your phone? Right? They kind of go hand in hand together. Another thing could be like, people like extreme sports and they want to be able to record it. Well, how can they do that? And, GoPro was invented. So the problem question thing kind of goes together, and that can always, like, if you can solve a problem for people in any market, that's always a fantastic idea, right? Presenting a better solution to something, okay? You can look at the market and you can look at solutions that might be out there already and try to find a way to innovate that solution to make it better or to do it better for other people. Making it meaningful to the market. This, when adding value to someone's life, these two kind of go together as well. You always want to add value, right? No matter what. We talked about this and we're going to talk about it again. It can't be overstressed when it comes to business. Adding value with whatever you're selling, whatever your business is doing, right? Having something that when people get it, they feel like it was worth it. They feel like the quality and the service, right? The quality of the product and the service behind the product that they purchased was valuable and more in value to them than what they spent on it. Okay. Meaningful to the market. This is, print on demand fits beautifully in here. Okay. Print on demand. The reason that this stuff sells so well is not because it solves a problem or because it answers a question, but it's meaningful to them, right? T-shirts are a commodity. People have apparel and accessories. This is always going to be a commodity that we purchase in our lives. So if you can make a T-shirt more meaningful to somebody than, the existing T-shirts that are out there, they're going to want to buy that T-shirt because it's meaningful to them, right? And then finally, last point, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. A lot of times people get stuck here in the idea phase and they're thinking about, and I know, believe me, I've done it too. So it's an important point for all of us to remember that you don't need to reinvent the wheel to have a good idea, okay? An idea can be simple. It can be as simple as improving upon something that you already see out there and doing it better. And that could end up being a really good idea because it's a better solution for somebody, right? Many good ideas, as we said, start by answering a question or solving a problem, and this can be something that you have, right? So, when we think about one of the ways to come up with an idea of what you're already interested in, or that can translate to, okay, not only like, what am I interested in, but in these interests that I have, what kind of problems do I have? What kind of things are like existing in my life already right now that I wish were better, or that somebody would solve this, okay? So these are just some questions that I've come across in the past, and I think that these are, through like workbooks and workshops and exercises that I think are really good to have in here to help guide you if you're like completely lost at this point and still trying to figure out what it is you want to do. And write this stuff down, right? Like actually go through this. What are the top 5 ideas that come to your mind? you just off the top of your head, when you start thinking about ideas that could be good for a business, or could be good for a product, or could be good for stuff to sell, what are the top 5 ideas that come to your mind? What pain points do you have in your life? Pain points being things that are frustrating, or problems, or, in your day, your everyday daily routine, or your weekly routine, things that are just like the major areas that you wish were better, okay? And what niches are you interested in? When I first got started, I remember sitting down and getting a piece of paper and just writing down all the niches that I thought were like good things, that I had like a list of things that I thought were good ideas in terms of what I thought would be popular. And then I had a list of niches that I was interested in. And then I tried to cross-reference them and come up with like the top ones that had the most correlation. So like you want to go through the exercise and write stuff down, because that's going to help you. Ideas are like, it's a brain activity, right? So the more that you exercise your brain, the more that you're going to come up with better results, okay? You're going to get stronger and have better results from that. Just remember that when it comes down to this point here, you need to use the validation stuff that we talked about, the criteria we talked about earlier in the academy, because there needs to be a market that matches your idea. All right, you might be interested in something that is really, really obscure, or really, really small, and it could be an interest that you're really passionate about, but if there's not a large enough market for it, then you're not going to be able to make enough money to actually build a business around that. So you want to also validate using the criteria that we talked about before. And then, of course, great ideas can come from researching products, niches on Google or Amazon. We talked about this already, right? And this is where you can look at categories that are out there. It's about finding a starting point. That's the main thing with a niche or with a product idea. It's about where is the starting point, because once you have a starting point, you can start digging into the research like I talked about and showed you. And that first starting point tends to be the most difficult for people. And that's why you just want to kind of brain dump whatever you have. And I hope some of these guidelines have helped you to be able to walk through that kind of stuff to get some starting points that you can start digging and doing some research, like in Google Keyword Planner. For example, okay? Say, for example, now, in Amazon, okay, so I'm right here in Amazon, I'm in something called the movers and shakers. Like, you can search on Google, you can type in Amazon bestsellers or Amazon movers and shakers, and they have these lists of like products that are, the movers and shakers list, for example, is products that are most, here it is, biggest gainers in sales rank over the past 24 hours, updated hourly. So a lot of times you can find ideas in here, depending on where you look. Like, some of these are going to be major brands that you can't really compete with, that won't be too beneficial to you. But you can look around in like different niches. So say you're interested in pets and you want to look around in here and see, okay, what kind of stuff? Pet grooming glove. All right, so maybe pet grooming glove is something that you think could be like of interest to you. And you want to come over to Google Keyword Planner then, and start digging around and doing some research, seeing what kind of demand there is, seeing what kind of related items are going to come up from this. Okay, so there's not too much demand, all right? There's a few different things in here: pet grooming glove, de-shedding glove, pet ninja glove, but overall, not really a lot of demand. But what you can do is you can see related terms that are here, and say maybe dog grooming. Okay, so dog grooming, get results. Now we can see dog grooming in and of itself is a much, much larger niche, right? 200,000 searches a month. And then so maybe we're going to come down here and start looking at what kind of things are the parts, the related keyword terms, because you can find a lot in the related keyword terms that could help you start narrowing in on what are the major parts of dog grooming, okay? You can see there's a lot of stuff that has to do with self-dog wash, dog groomers. And this might have not have been the best example, because grooming tends to be a service, like an actual brick and mortar location. But maybe in here there's an idea about how can I do something that lets people have effective dog grooming at home, right? Instead of having to take your dog to a groomer. And it's not really my niche, but I'm just thinking out loud about how I would kind of go through this process of starting to look around and just starting to get ideas of what's in the niche and what are the main keywords that people are looking at. Dog nail trimming. Interesting one. So anyway, this is just the basic idea of using the keyword planner. Okay, you can start with a keyword and you can start to see like what are the related searches. So maybe you say, okay, dog grooming looks like it's too much of people looking for places nearby. I need something that's a little bit more, can be sold online. So maybe you want to look at pet clothes. Okay, that has 3,600, but clearly I can see right away here are some actual results coming up. Dog clothes, dog sweaters, dog coats. Like there is a lot of demand for these 3 items right here. So now maybe I just narrowed in on a niche that could work. You could sell dog clothes, dog sweaters. Look, there's other ones. There's dog jackets, dog Christmas sweater. That's kind of funny. Dog hoodies, dog outfits. So we just found a niche, okay? And I'm sure that there are, it says competition is high. I'm sure there's plenty of competition in this niche. But with this kind of demand, this is something that I feel like could be a good niche, right? There's demand for it. There's plenty of keywords here that you can look at for subcategories that you can sell in: clothes, sweaters, coats, jackets, Christmas sweater, even when it gets to be there, hoodie. So this is something that just from searching around in Google Keyword Planner, that's what it's about. It's about having a starting point and then just looking around, coming up with ideas, seeing what might work. And now from this point, right, this is where, we had the whole market research idea where now I would start taking these keywords to Google and I would start looking at who are the main competitors, who's selling this stuff online, and is there room for me to enter this market, and what can I do that's a little different? How can I be unique and actually build a brand out of this, right? Which is where we're going to start going with some of the next stuff. So in closing, for this, right, if you find something with a search volume of several keywords that's over 10,000 a month, I think that that's a good indication of demand. All right, I talked about that in the niche research, right? If it has 10,000 searches a month or more, there's demand there. And if that item also has social appeal that's going to allow you to be unique and build some kind of brand, then I think you have a good idea, right? Because here, this is something that is definitely unique and is definitely going to have multiple branding angles you could use of dogs and clothes, whether it's a photo or a video, stories of owners with their dogs, and there's stuff for every season of the year within here. So there's a lot of room for marketing creativity, and if there's room for creativity, which there almost always is if you're thinking about it in the right way, but if there's room for creativity, then even if there's high competition, you're still going to be able to find a way to create unique marketing angles and sell products. Okay, that's what I believe anyway, and I think that's a true statement. If you look at some of the best marketing campaigns, a lot of times they are in competitive, highly competitive. Remember, competition is a good thing because it lets you know that there's money being spent there, right? And it's an industry where you can make money. And if it's a big industry, then there's plenty of money and opportunity to go around. All right, so that's everything I just wanted to kind of cover as a recap in the finding your idea phase. I know some of that is review, but again, at this point, it's important that you really start thinking about your idea, because in the next one, we're going to start talking about how you take that idea and figure out your value proposition, and then from there, how you start putting together your brand identity and all of these things moving into actually building your store and going through this process. All right, I'll see you in the next video.